Imagine this for a second. What if the very foundation of the system you've been told to protect, to provide for, to sacrifice everything for is quietly crumbling, not because of some big dramatic collapse you'd see on the news, but because millions of regular men like you and me simply decided one day that we were done carrying the load? What if the moment men stopped showing up, stopped overworking, stopped spending to impress, stopped rescuing everyone else from the consequences of their own choices, the entire economy started to teeter on the edge of something irreversible? And what if by the time most people finally notice, the men who used to hold it all together have already walked so far away that there's no coming back, no matter how loud the cries for help get? Stick with me to the very end today, because I'm going to lay out exactly how single men are quietly bankrupting the current system, why they're never returning, and why the people who spent years celebrating men walking away are about to discover that those same men were the only thing standing between them and absolute chaos. If you want more raw, no filter, angry guy breakdowns like this, smash that like button right now. Share this video with every man you know who's waking up, and subscribe with notifications on so you never miss when I drop the next one. And listen, if you're tired of watching your wealth disappear while everybody else lives off your effort, go click the link in the description and join Angry's Crypto Academy today. That's where I teach men step by step how to buy, store, trade, and protect their assets in a world that's doing everything it can to separate you from your money. The Academy is linked below. Go enroll right now while it's on your mind. And if these videos are hitting home and keeping you fired up, show some love by buying me a Red Bull through the link in the description. Every can keeps the rage-fueled truth coming. Let's get into it. Single men are bankrupting society. I'm going to say that again because it's the kind of statement that makes people uncomfortable the first time they hear it. Single men, the ones who have chosen peace over performance, solitude over subsidizing, freedom over being a financial and emotional utility, are quietly, calmly, and irreversibly dismantling the economic model the modern world was built on. And the craziest part, most of them aren't even trying to send a message. They're not protesting in the streets. They're not writing manifestos. They're just living their lives on their own terms. And that simple act of refusal is more powerful than any riot ever could be. Let me paint the picture with numbers that nobody on mainstream platforms wants to talk about, because the moment you say them out loud, the narrative collapses. Women as a group make roughly 80% of all consumer purchases. That's not an opinion. That's decades of retail data, marketing studies, and economic reports. 8 out of every $10 spent on clothes, cosmetics, dining out, travel, home decor, you name it, traced back to a female buyer or a female influencing the purchase. Consumer spending is the engine that keeps the modern economy humming. Without it, malls close, restaurants shutter, entire industries shrink overnight. Now flip the coin. Who funds the system that makes all that spending possible? Men pay approximately 80% of all taxes. Again, not rhetoric, cold, hard government revenue data. Income taxes, property taxes, sales taxes, payroll taxes, the overwhelming majority of the money that flows into the public treasury comes from male earners. And within that group, married men contribute the single largest chunk, because married men consistently work the longest hours, take the most dangerous jobs, accept the most overtime, and push themselves the hardest to provide for wives, children, and households. So here's the math nobody wants to do in public. The average woman, over the course of her lifetime, will consume more resources from the system than she contributes in taxes. She will be a net drain. The average man, especially the married man, will contribute far more in taxes than he ever takes out. He will be a net surplus. For decades, that arrangement worked because men were socially pressured, shamed, and incentivized to marry, to provide, to keep the machine running. The married man was the golden goose, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, paying for the house he barely lived in, the cars he barely drove, the vacations he barely enjoyed. Also, the system could keep extracting. And then something changed. Men started waking up, slowly at first, then all at once. Younger men, especially those in their prime working years, 25 to 50, looked at the deal being offered and said, no, thank you. They watched their fathers, their uncles, their older brothers get financially destroyed in family court. They watched good men lose their homes, their children, their life savings, and in some cases, their will to live, all because they signed up for the script society told them was mandatory. They watched the culture turn masculinity itself into a dirty word. They watched movements rise up that labeled normal male behavior as toxic, that turned every workplace into a potential career ending trap, that celebrated female independence while simultaneously demanding male provision. And one by one, then by the millions, men did the most radical thing imaginable. They opted out. Not with anger at first, though the anger came later for many. They opted out quietly. They stopped dating. They stopped chasing. They stopped spending to impress. They disappeared from the apps, from the clubs, from the marriage statistics, and in many cases from the full time workforce altogether. They chose peace over performance. They chose minimalism over materialism. They chose themselves over a society that had made it crystal clear it no longer valued them. And the system is now discovering in real time what happens when the golden goose finally says, I'm not playing anymore. See, men are minimalist by nature. Give the average man a safe place to sleep, enough food to stay strong, a gym membership or some weights in the garage, a gaming setup or a fishing rod, and a fast internet connection, and he can be content for decades. He doesn't need the newest phone every year. He doesn't need a 6 bedroom house he can't afford. He doesn't need the $80,000 SUV to flex on people he doesn't like. Strip away the social pressure to provide for others, and men naturally default to a low cost, high peace lifestyle. Women, on the other side of the equation, are consumerist by nature. That's not an insult, that's observable reality backed by mountains of data. The moment social pressure or male provision is removed, spending patterns don't moderate, they accelerate. The nails, the hair, the brunches, the girls' trips, the Stanley Cups, the Sheen Halls, the constant need for new stimulation and new status symbols. None of that disappears just because the bills are getting harder to pay. If anything, the anxiety of falling behind drives even more consumption as a coping mechanism. So when men walk away, when they stop subsidizing that lifestyle, the math no longer works. Rents don't get paid, credit card bills pile up. The economic model that depended on male overproduction and female overconsumption begins to short circuit. And we're seeing the evidence everywhere now, even if the mainstream refuses to connect the dots. You've got women all over social media making video after video announcing that the boss babe era is officially over. You've got influencers who spent years bragging about being an independent, now openly admitting they need a man, not for love, not for partnership, but for basic survival. You've got viral clips of women saying they're exhausted, broke, scared, and ready to submit if someone will just come pay the bills again. But here's the part nobody wants to say out loud: those men aren't coming back. They've already built their small, quiet, affordable lives. They've already tasted peace. They've already experienced what it's like to work 40 hours and keep 100% of what they earn. They've already deleted the dating apps, sold the overpriced truck, moved into the smaller apartment, and discovered that life is actually better when nobody is financially dependent on you. They've already learned that solitude is infinitely preferable to being used. And every day that peace gets sweeter, the idea of going back gets more insane. I want you to really think about that. These are men who were told their entire lives that their value was in what they could provide. Hey guys, in a world pushing you to own nothing and be happy, crypto is your key to survival. Join Angry's Crypto Academy to master buying, selling, and trading crypto. Make huge profits and safeguard your wealth. Plus, discover the one crypto virtually no one is talking about, poised to create new millionaires in the upcoming bull run. The link is in the description of the video below. Go check it out now. That their purpose was to protect and serve, that walking away made them failures, losers, deadbeats. And yet, when they finally did walk away, they didn't collapse, they thrived. Crime didn't skyrocket, society didn't immediately fall apart. Instead, these men got healthier, wealthier, calmer, and happier than they'd ever been under the old rules. Meanwhile, the system that spent decades telling them they were disposable is now discovering just how indispensable they actually were. We told men they were the problem. We told them their natural desires were dangerous. We told them their presence wasn't safe. We ran polls asking women if they'd rather encounter a bear in the woods than an unknown man. And millions of women picked the bear. Fine. Enjoy the bear. Let the bear pay the rent. Let the bear fix the car. Let the bear work overtime so you can keep the lifestyle you refuse to downsize. Men heard the message loud and clear, and they're acting on it. The late, great Kevin Samuels used to warn women every single day on his platform, ladies, winter is coming. He'd tell them that the party doesn't last forever, that the music eventually stops, that the men who were willing to overextend themselves have a limit. And for years, people mocked him, called him bitter, called him a misogynist, called him everything under the sun. But Kevin is gone now, and winter has arrived exactly as he predicted. Hot girl summer is officially canceled. Broke girl winter is here, and it's going to be a long one because the men who used to bail everyone out aren't broke anymore. They're not exhausted anymore. They're not desperate for validation anymore. They've got their small apartments, their paid off trucks, their crypto wallets, their gym routines, their peace and quiet, and they're guarding it with their lives. And no amount of crying on TikTok is going to change that. This is only the beginning, brothers. We're just getting started. The walkaway movement isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. And the further it goes, the more the true cost of Thumbi's house of treating men as disposable utilities reveals itself. Stay with me, because in the next part, I'm going to break down the actual numbers state by state, city by city, showing exactly how fast the surplus is drying up and who's going to feel the pain first. You're not going to want to miss it. I told you we're only getting started, and I meant it. Because what most people still don't grasp is that the walkaway movement isn't some emotional temper tantrum. It isn't a phase. It isn't a bunch of bitter guys sulking in their parents' basements, eating ramen and playing video games all day. That's the cartoon version the media wants you to believe, so you dismiss the whole thing. The reality is far colder, far more calculated, and infinitely more devastating to the current economic order. And what's actually happening is millions of capable, competent, high earning men have done the math, looked at the return on investment for participating in the old social contract, and quietly reallocated every ounce of their time, energy, and money into themselves and a small circle of people who actually value them. And once a man makes that shift, once he tastes what real freedom feels like, there is no advertisement, no amount of guilt, no viral crying video that can drag him back into the harness. Let me take you through a real world example so you can see exactly how this plays out on the ground. I want you to picture a guy named Mark. Mark is 35 years old. 10 years ago, he was the blueprint of what society told him he was supposed to be. Six-figure engineer, nice truck, dating a girl he met in college who kept talking about our future. He was grinding 65 hours a week, picking up extra projects, saying yes to every overtime shift because that's what providers do. He bought the ring. He put 20% down on a 4-bedroom house in a good school district they didn't need yet. He was on track to be another married man generating massive taxable surplus for the system. Then 2020 hit. Remote work showed him he could do his job in 25 focused hours a week from anywhere. The wedding got postponed, then postponed again, then quietly canceled. The girlfriend started making 6-figure TikTok money for dancing in designer workout sets and telling other women they didn't need men. Mark watched her spending explode while his savings drained. He started reading, he started listening, he started waking up. One day he sat down with a spreadsheet, something engineers do very well, and he modeled out the next 30 years under 2 scenarios. Scenario 1, stay on the current path, marry, kids, bigger house, private schools, luxury SUVs, Disney vacations, the whole script. Scenario 2, walk away, keep his income, slash his expenses, invest the difference, and live exactly how he wants. The gap between the two futures was over $8 million. $8 million. That wasn't emotional, that was math. Cold, brutal, undeniable math. Mark sold the house, paid off the truck, moved into a 1-bedroom loft 15 minutes from a beach, negotiated permanent remote with his company, and now works 30 hours a week, surfs every morning, lifts every afternoon, and watches his net worth compound faster than his married friends can believe. He hasn't been on a dating app in 4 years. He hasn't had a single argument about money, about whose turn it is to load the dishwasher, about why the credit card bill is $4,000 again. His stress levels are non-existent. His peace is priceless. And Mark is not an outlier. Mark is the new normal. There are tens of millions of Marks out there right now, and the number is growing every single day. Now, multiply that by 50 states, by every city, by every industry. Engineers, plumbers, linemen, coders, truck drivers, nurses, entrepreneurs, men from every walk of life are running the same numbers and coming to the same conclusion. The juice is no longer worth the squeeze. The return on investment for traditional participation has gone negative. So they're pulling their capital, human, financial, emotional, all of it, and reallocating it where it actually benefits them. And the system never saw it coming because the system honestly believed men had no other options. They thought male identity was so tied to providing and protecting that men would keep doing it even when the deal turned predatory. They thought men would keep showing up no matter how badly they were insulted, how many traps were set, how many times they were told their very existence was the problem. They were wrong. Let me show you how fast this is moving with some numbers most channels are terrified to say out loud. In the United States, male labor force participation for prime working age men, 25 to 54, has been dropping for decades, but since 2020, the decline has accelerated into free fall. We're talking about millions of men who are no longer counted in the official unemployment statistics because they've stopped looking for traditional jobs altogether. They're driving for rideshare apps when they feel like it, doing freelance consulting, trading crypto, flipping tools on eBay, building small online businesses, whatever lets them control their time and keep 100% of the upside. The tax base is shrinking in real time, and almost nobody in government wants to admit why. At the same time, marriage rates have collapsed to historic lows. In 1970, roughly 80% of men in their 30s were married. Today, that number is barely 50% and still falling. Every single year that percentage drops, another cohort of high earning men exits the married taxpayer category and enters the single minimalist category. That's not a small shift. That's a seismic transfer of wealth and productivity away from the public treasury and into private hands. And here's where it gets really brutal for the system. Single men spend dramatically less than married men. A married man with a family will easily drop $200,000 a year, keeping the household running. Mortgage, cars, insurance, private schools, extracurriculars, vacations. The list is endless. A single man living intentionally can run his entire life on $30,000 to $40,000 a year and still save half his income. That's a 75 to 80% reduction in consumer spending from the same human being just by changing his relationship status. Do that across 10 million men, and you've just vaporized trillions in economic activity that the system was counting on. Trillions. Retail is feeling it. Real estate is feeling it. The auto industry is feeling it. State and local governments are feeling it as property tax and sales tax revenue growth flatlines even while populations grow. The federal government is feeling it as the most productive taxpayers quietly restructure their lives to minimize taxable income. And nobody knows how to stop it because you can't force men to get married. You can't force men to spend money they don't want to spend. You can't shame men who have already achieved peace back into misery. All you can do is watch the surplus disappear. And it's not just the United States. Japan has been dealing with their version of this for 25 years. The herbivore men, they call them. Young Japanese men who rejected the corporate grind, rejected marriage, rejected consumerism, and just quietly opted out. Japan's economy has been stagnant for 3 decades. Their birth rate is catastrophic, and their government is desperate. They've tried everything: tax incentives, propaganda campaigns, public shaming. Nothing works. Once men discover peace, they don't negotiate with chaos. Europe is next. The UK, Germany, Scandinavia, all seeing the same trends. Marriage rates collapsing, male labor participation dropping, young men choosing digital nomadism, geo arbitrage, crypto, and minimalism over the old path of overwork and overpayment. This is global. This is permanent. And it's accelerating. Now, I want you to really let this next part sink in because it's the part that makes people the most uncomfortable. The same voices that spent years celebrating female independence, telling women they don't need men, that men are obsolete, that masculinity is toxic. Those same voices are now the ones screaming the loudest about loneliness epidemics, about falling birth rates, about who's going to pay for everything when the traditional providers disappear. But here's the thing, they still refuse to say out loud: men didn't abandon women. Women and the culture that enables them abandoned men first. Men were told in 1,000 different ways that their role as provider was no longer wanted unless it came with complete powerlessness. They were told their protection was creepy, their attention was harassment, their earnings were communal property, but their emotional labor was never reciprocated. So men did what rational actors do when the terms of a deal become exploitative. They exited the deal. And now the consequences are arriving exactly on schedule. You see it every day on social media. Women in their late 20s and 30s making video after video with the same script. Where are all the good men? Why won't men approach anymore? Why is dating so hard? And the answer is staring them right in the face, but they can't say it out loud because it would require accountability. The good men didn't die. They didn't disappear. They just stopped participating in a game that was rigged against them from the start. They're still here. They're just invisible to the women who spent years saying they didn't want them unless they earned six figures, were 6 feet tall, had six-pack abs, and were willing to accept zero reciprocity. Those men looked at the requirements, looked at the risks, ran the numbers, and said, hard pass. And now those same women are discovering that Uber Eats doesn't accept Vibes Pass files as payment, that landlords don't care how many followers you have, that inflation doesn't negotiate just because you're exhausted from working two jobs, trying to keep up the lifestyle you were told you deserved. Winter doesn't care about your feelings. Winter doesn't care about your girl boss affirmations. Winter is here, and it's only getting colder. I want you to think about the sheer scale of what's coming. We're not talking about a minor correction. We're talking about the largest transfer of economic power in modern history, from institutions and consumer markets back into the hands of individual men who have decided they're done being farmed. And the most beautiful part, it's peaceful, it's quiet. There's no violence required, no protests, no angry mobs, just millions of men making the same individual decision. My peace is non negotiable. That's the ultimate red pill. Not rage, not revenge. Peace. True, unbreakable, expensive tasting peace. And once a man has that, good luck trying to trade it for chaos again. We're barely halfway through this breakdown, fellas. In the next section, I'm going to walk you through exactly which cities and states are going to feel this collapse first, which industries are already bleeding out, and what the end game actually looks like when the surplus is gone for good. Let me take you into the cities and states where this collapse is already showing up in the raw data, because once you see the actual numbers on the ground, there is no unseeing it. The mainstream will keep calling it inflation. They'll keep calling it lingering pandemic effects. They'll keep blaming everything except the one variable they can't control anymore: millions of productive men quietly refusing to overproduce and overpay. Start with California, ground zero for the fantasy that you can insult, overtax, overregulate, and overshame the people who actually keep the lights on and still have them stick around out of duty. California has lost more than 500,000 residents since 2020, and the overwhelming majority of the people leaving are working age men with above average incomes. These aren't retirees fleeing high taxes in their golden years. These are 30 and 40 something guys who looked at six-figure state income tax bills, looked at $1.2 million starter homes in neighborhoods that aren't even safe anymore, looked at the constant cultural messaging that their very existence makes women feel unsafe, and said, I can be disrespected and broke anywhere. Might as well do it somewhere cheaper. Where are they going? Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Idaho, the Carolinas, anywhere that still has affordable housing, low or no state income tax, a culture that hasn't declared open war on masculinity yet. And every single one of those men who leaves takes his taxable income, his spending power, and his future family formation plans with him. California is now facing a $68 billion budget deficit, the largest in its history. At the exact same time, its most reliable taxpayers are loading U-Hauls. That's not a coincidence. That's cause and effect in real time. Look at San Francisco. The commercial real estate vacancy rate downtown just hit 36%. Entire blocks look like zombie apocalypse movie sets. Retail corridors that used to have 2-hour waits for brunch now have for lease signs every third storefront. And the city's answer? Raise taxes again, double down on policies that chase away anyone with options, and wonder out loud why the streets are full of tents while the tax base evaporates. They still can't say the quiet part out loud. The men who used to subsidize the entire experiment have left, and the people who remain expect the lifestyle to continue on someone else's dime. Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, same story, playing out at different speeds. Every city that spent the last decade signaling that traditional masculine energy wasn't welcome is now shocked that traditional masculine energy stopped showing up to fix the problems. Shocked that the guys who used to work 80 hours a week to pay the property taxes that fund the social programs are now working 30 hours remotely from a mountain town in Idaho, paying a fraction of the taxes and sleeping like babies. Now zoom out to the state level. 27 states in America now have more women than men in the 20 to 34 age bracket. That has never happened before in recorded history. Men are literally voting with their feet, leaving high cost, high hostility environments and moving to places where their money goes further and their peace is more respected. And every time another man crosses a state line to a lower tax, lower drama jurisdiction, the state he leaves loses current and future revenue while the state he arrives in gains it. This isn't random migration. This is strategic relocation on a scale we haven't seen since the Dust Bowl, except this time the dust is cultural, financial, and emotional. And the men fleeing it have passports, remote jobs, and crypto wallets. Let's talk about the industries that are bleeding out right now because they never imagined the male consumer could disappear overnight. Luxury retail is getting absolutely crushed. And guys, as console gaming fades into history, the PC master race is rising from its ashes, stronger, faster, and more customizable than ever. Don't get left behind in the dust. Angry Guys Arcade is your gateway to affordable PC gaming, personalized gaming advice, and the latest news shaping the future of gaming. The link is in the description. Go check it out now. Brands that built entire business models around men buying $3,000 handbags and $800 sneakers for women they were trying to impress are watching same store sales collapse. Look at LVMH. Look at Gucci. Look at any company that depends on impress her spending. Their growth has flatlined or gone negative for the first time in decades, and the official excuse is always China slowdown. Sure, it has nothing to do with the fact that the guys who used to drop 5 grand on a weekend to keep a situationship alive have discovered that $79 Allbirds and a paid off Tacoma make women swipe left just as fast, but keep 100% of the money in their own pocket. High end dating coaches and matchmakers who used to charge men $20,000 for exclusive access to vetted women are going out of business left and right. Entire agencies shutting down because the men who were willing to pay that kind of money finally realized the game was rigged and walked away. Jewelry stores that depended on engagement ring season are seeing their slowest years ever. Wedding venues that used to be booked 2 years out now have openings every weekend. The entire marriage industrial complex is contracting because the primary customer, the man who is willing to go into debt to signal commitment, has left the market. Even the car industry is feeling it hard. The average new vehicle transaction price is still over $48,000. But who do you think was financing most of those 1,200 a month truck payments? Married men trying to keep up with the image, or single guys trying to compensate for being 5 feet 8 inches? Now those men are buying 10-year-old paid for Tacomas or Broncos, modding them themselves, and keeping the $800 a month they used to send to the bank. Dealerships are sitting on inventory they can't move because the guys who used to care about having the newest, biggest, shiniest toy realize nobody they actually respect is impressed by it anymore. And don't even get me started on real estate. The National Association of Realtors is in full panic mode because first time homebuyer participation just hit the lowest level ever recorded. The 25 to 34 age group, which should be the engine of entry level home purchases, has basically stopped buying. Why? Because the men in that age group who used to be pressured into settling down and buying the overpriced starter home are no longer settling. They're renting a nice apartment for $1,400 a month, banking the difference and watching the housing market from the sidelines while it slowly implodes under its own weight. Every single one of these industries had one thing in common. They depended on male insecurity, male guilt, and male willingness to trade peace for performance. Once those three things evaporated, the revenue evaporated with them. Now let's talk about what's coming next, because this is where it gets almost biblical. We are heading into a period where entire cities and states are going to run out of surplus male taxpayers before they run out of obligations. Pensions that were promised to public employees, many of them women in education and healthcare, were funded on the assumption that there would always be a fresh crop of overworked married men paying into the system. Those men are gone or going. The math no longer works. We are going to see municipal bankruptcies, pension defaults, and drastic cuts to services that people have been told were untouchable. Schools that depended on property taxes from $800,000 homes owned by dual income married couples are going to close or consolidate. Public transit systems that lose money on every rider, but were subsidized by male income tax surplus, are going to slash routes. Welfare programs, Section 8 housing, food stamps, all of it was backstopped by the invisible army of men who paid more in than they ever took out. When that army disappears, the programs disappear with it. And the craziest part is that nobody can force the men to come back. You can't draft them into marriage. You can't garnish wages they choose not to earn. You can't shame men who have already achieved peace back into misery. All you can do is watch the obligations pile up while the revenue walks away, one U-Haul at a time. I want you to picture a major American city 10 years from now, commercial districts half empty, luxury apartments converted to Section 8 because the market rate renters can't afford them anymore. Property taxes doubled, then tripled, trying to make up the gap, driving even more men out. Schools on 4-day weeks because they can't pay teachers. Public hospitals closing floors because the Medicaid reimbursement doesn't cover costs anymore. And everywhere you look, billboards and PSAs begging men to come back and man up and do your part, while simultaneously running campaigns about how men are the root of all problems. It's going to be the greatest irony in modern history. And the men, they'll be living in small towns in Tennessee or the mountains of North Carolina or the coast of Portugal or Chiang Mai, Thailand, working 20 hours a week remotely, lifting in their garage gyms, fishing on Tuesday mornings because they feel like it, and wondering what all the noise is about. They'll have six-figure crypto portfolios, paid for land, no debt, no drama, and peace so deep it feels like a luxury. And that's the end game. That's what total victory looks like when you stop negotiating with people who never negotiated with you. You've seen the collapse happening in real time. You've seen the cities bleeding out. You've seen the industries that lived off male performance dying quiet deaths. Now we're going to talk about what you do with this information, because knowledge without execution is just entertainment. And I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to hand you the exact playbook that millions of men are already using to turn this shift into the greatest wealth transfer and freedom grab most of us will ever see in our lifetimes. Step one, understand that your most valuable asset right now is not your 401k, not your house, not even your crypto stack. It's your attention and your time. Every minute you spend chasing validation, every dollar you spend trying to impress people who don't actually care about you, is a minute and a dollar you will never get back. The men who are winning right now are the ones who became ruthless about protecting those two resources. They treat their attention like it's Fort Knox, and they treat their time like it's the last resource on earth, because in a very real way, it is. The moment you internalize that, everything else becomes simple. First move, cut the bleed. Most men are leaking money in a dozen different directions they don't even notice because they've been conditioned to think spending equals success. Go look at your last 6 months of transactions right now, today, after this video, and highlight in red every single purchase that was made to keep someone else comfortable, to keep up an image, or to avoid being called cheap, selfish, or any other word they use when you stop subsidizing dysfunction. That red column is your freedom fund in disguise. The average man I coach finds between $1,500 and $4,000 a month in pure waste the minute he gets honest. That's $18,000 to $48,000 a year that was just evaporating so he could keep a smile on someone else's face. Stop it today. Second move, weaponize minimalism. I'm not talking about some trendy Marie Kondo nonsense where you fold your socks into little squares. I'm talking about deliberate, aggressive, masculine minimalism. One plate, one bowl, one mug, one good cast iron skillet, one pair of boots that will outlive you, one mattress on the floor, if that's what it takes. The less you own, the less owns you. The less you need, the less anyone can use necessity as a leash. Every item you eliminate is a brick in the fortress of your peace. I know a guy in Austin who sold everything that wouldn't fit in 2 duffel bags, moved into a 400 square foot studio for $950 a month, and took home an extra $3,800 every month he used to spend on a mortgage, HOA fees, furniture payments, and a truck note. In 18 months, he had $250,000 liquid. He's 33. He lifts at 5 a.m., works remote from coffee shops, rides a motorcycle he paid cash for, and dates when he feels like it. On his terms, no sleepovers. That's not deprivation. That's power. Third move, relocate or die broke. I'm dead serious. If you are still living in a high tax, high cost, high hostility state or city because this is where I'm from, or my job is here, or my family would be upset, you are voluntarily choosing to subsidize your own destruction. Every extra dollar you pay in state, income tax, property tax, or inflated rent is a dollar that used to go towards your future and now goes toward propping up a system that hates you. Pick a place where your money stretches, where the culture still has some sanity left, and where men are not treated like walking ATMs with original sin. Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Arkansas, Idaho, the Dakotas, places where a man can still buy an acre of land and a modest house for what a 1995 Honda Civic costs in California. And before anyone says, but my career, understand that 2025 is not 2015. Remote work is now permanent for any job that can be done on a laptop. And any company that tries to force you back into an office 5 days a week is handing you a golden opportunity to negotiate permanent remote or walk. I've watched men take a 15% pay cut to move to a no income tax state and still come out $28,000 a year ahead after taxes and cost of living. Do the math for your situation. It almost always pencils. Fourth move, build multiple streams that don't depend on your physical presence or your willingness to play corporate games. The men who are truly untouchable right now have 3 to 7 income streams, none of which require them to ask permission, punch a clock, or sit in traffic. Crypto staking, dividend stocks, faceless YouTube channels, e-commerce stores, consulting side gigs, rental income from a paid-off duplex in a cheap state. Whatever aligns with your skills. The goal is simple. Get to the point where your passive income covers your deliberately low expenses and your day job becomes optional. The moment your job is optional, every HR meeting, every pronoun policy, every nonsense mandate becomes comedy instead of a threat. Fifth move, master money silence. And stop talking about your money, your plans, your wins, or your walkaway strategy with anyone who is still plugged into the old system. Your ex, your mother, your married friends, your coworkers. None of them need to know you're stacking cash, moving to a low-cost paradise, or building a life that doesn't include their drama. The moment you start announcing your freedom, 3 things happen: jealousy, sabotage, and people showing up with their hands out. Stay gray, stay quiet, move like a ghost. Sixth move, get your body and your mind unbreakable. The system wants you weak, sick, addicted, and distracted. Every commercial, every app, every fast food menu is engineered to keep you that way. The strongest middle finger you can give the entire machine is to become the healthiest, strongest, calmest version of yourself possible. Lift heavy 4 days a week, eat meat, eggs, and vegetables, sleep 8 hours, walk in the sun. Delete social media apps that rot your brain. Read books that make you dangerous. The man who can deadlift 4 plates, run 5 miles, and sit in silence for an hour without needing entertainment is a man no system on earth can control. Seventh move, build a small, tight circle of other men who are on the same path. Not 50 casual bros, not Discord servers with 10,000 lurkers, 5 to 10 guys max who you would actually take a punch for and who would take one for you. Men who are also walking away, also building, also protecting their peace. Iron sharpens iron. You keep each other accountable. You share intel. You watch each other's backs when the world starts getting desperate and looking for someone to blame. I want you to really picture what your life looks like 12 months from today if you execute every single one of these steps at 80% intensity. You're making the same or more money, but your expenses are half what they are now. You're living in a place where your dollar stretches and nobody is trying to shame you for being born male. You've got 6 months of living expenses in cold storage and another 6 months in assets that pay you while you sleep. Your phone is quiet because the people who only called when they needed something have been cut off. Your gym numbers are going up, your blood pressure is going down, and you fall asleep every night without a single argument echoing in your head. That's not a fantasy. That's what thousands of men are living right now, and millions more are only one decision away from joining them. And the best part? The longer you wait, the more expensive it gets to leave, and the cheaper it gets for the men who already left. Every month you delay is another month. Someone else is buying the land, locking in the remote deal, stacking the assets, and securing the peace you keep telling yourself you'll get someday. Someday is a disease that will take your dreams to the grave with you. The men who are winning acted when it was uncomfortable, when their friends called them paranoid, when their family accused them of abandoning responsibility, when the culture was still screaming that real men provide no matter what. They tuned out the noise, trusted the math, and built the life anyway. Now, the same people who mocked them are making TikToks about how exhausted they are, how nothing is affordable anymore, how they just need a good man to fix everything. And those men who walked away early are watching from the sideline with paid off houses, 7-figure net worths at 35, and peace so deep you can't buy it at any price. That could be you a year from now. Or you can keep waiting for permission that's never coming. Your choice. We've got one final section coming where I'm going to lay out the timeline of exactly how ugly this gets over the next 5 to 10 years. Who loses the most, who wins the biggest, and the one move that still works, even if you're starting from zero today. You do not want to miss the closer. Tell me in the comments right now, which of these 7 moves are you committing to this week? Cut the bleed, relocate, go silent. I want to see your declaration below so the rest of the Brotherhood can hold you accountable. Like the video if you're ready to execute, subscribe if you're locked in for the end, share this with every man who still thinks he has to stay and take the beating, and always remember, all roads lead to MWA, men walking away, and cheers.
Nothing says you care like crypto. Nothing can compare. Nothing says you care like crypto. Oh, nothing can compare to crypto.